Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joined by Sean Connolly, Kevin McCluskey, and of course, Chris McElwain. And we're here to talk about Celtic 2, Kilmarnock 1. At half-time, I was a little bit critical, Sean, of Rio Hatate and his Hollywood passes. Second half, I think every single one of them came off. He really, I felt, played himself into a good performance in that second half, Sean.
I said at halftime, I thought he was actually having a good performance in the first half. I was the dissenting voice on that one. But yes, I thought he had a good overall game. There was a point, he was really involved in a lot. And there was one point where Alistair Johnson makes a run down the side. I think it was about the 80th minute, something like that. And the pass, I wouldn't say it's on, but there's like a low percentage pass. There's a chance for a low percentage pass there, and he doesn't take it, and the crowd get on his back, and I'm like, start thinking to myself, what do people want from this guy? Like, people are telling him to keep it simple, and then also the crowd are getting on him when he doesn't try a low percentage over the top pass 50 yards to Alistair Johnson, especially when the game's balanced at 2-1. I thought that was quite a mature decision making as well. So I thought he had a very good game. I would have had McGregor down as the best on pitch personally, but yeah, I thought Hatate was right up there. And if he doesn't miss that sitter in the first half, I think he is the man of the match.
Well, this is the thing with Rio Hatate. When you're looking at the midfield players, Kevin, we always think of him as the kind of game changer, the playmaker who can, thread the balls through the eye of a needle. And for me, I didn't think he was as great in the first half, but Sean picked out 2 or 3 of the opportunities that we had created, and it came through Rio. And that continued in the second half as well. Some brilliant chances created by him. And you're looking at that performance thinking, if we have to be at the top of our game on Wednesday night, he can be crucial to that, because when he's good, he's top level good. And when he's bad, he's, he never gets a 6 or that kind of mediocre average performance. It's really good or pretty poor. And I think, that it bodes well going into Wednesday with that performance tonight.
It does from him, yeah. So I think I get your point on him. He's usually either like a 3 or a 4 because nothing he does comes off, or he's up as being a 7 or an 8 because everything he does comes off. And I think today was kind of Rio Hatate in a nutshell, because there were moments in the first half when he was trying his passes, his Hollywood passes, as you call them, and they weren't coming off. He did give the ball away a few times, but then, as Sean also pointed out, during that first half, he sets up 3 or 4 chances, and it's not his fault that the boy he set them up for doesn't score. So he could have walked away with 3 assists by halftime, and had just that kind of performance where he's either good or he's bad. He was nothing in between. And then the second half, I felt he stepped it up a bit more. He did cut out some of those kind of more risky passes that he normally tries. He didn't really do them in his own half. And again, as Sean's just said, he refused to take a few of them on going forward. So he seemed to be a bit more attuned to the game and picking his passes a bit better. We know he's got that in him though, it's that hugely frustrating thing about him, because going into Wednesday night's game, absolutely, he's got the ability to be a match winner for us. He can score goals, he can set others up, he can dominate a midfield going forward. And if we can get that second half performance from him today for 90 minutes or 60, 70 minutes on Wednesday night, then I think we stand a really good chance of winning. He just needs to cut out at times, trying to do the spectacular in his own defensive third. Get that out of his game, which I don't know if we ever will, because it's been 3.5 seasons or whatever and he's still doing it. But the risk reward was there today. He gave the ball away at times, didn't really cost us anything, but did create quite a few opportunities. I'd be interested to see what his XA from this game would be, or what our XG would be, because we created so many chances, and to come away with just the 2 goals, it's unlike us. Normally we're pretty efficient in front of goals, so it's one concern. But then I'd far rather we were creating and missing chances than not creating the chance to miss.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. I think Rio Hatate is one of those players, Chris. I'm not sure Brendan, for one reason or another, fancied him. Maybe not as an individual, but certainly in his team. He didn't start, the first competitive game in Rodgers' first season, and it took him a wee while to settle. But what is clear is all this time later, Rodgers does fancy him. because, you know, it looks as though he's part of that, you know, first choice midfield, Rio Hatate. And going into the game on Wednesday night, you're going to need that wee bit of magic, perhaps, and he can provide it when he's on song.
I think based on his second half performance today, and I actually agree with Sean. I didn't think he was the worst player in the first half. I just thought there was a period in the first half where he continually lost possession. But what I saw in that second half was a much more mature, much more composed player, and a player that was taking accountability. I really liked the fact he was looking for the ball, and our overall play went much more direct. We were forward moving. He was dictating the play. The forward passes were there. We were actually finding Kyogo a lot. Still issues about that player being isolated up front, I think, you know, because even when we get the ball to him, he's struggling to create the space to get the shot away, and we saw that on a couple of occasions. But by virtue of the fact we started to take more control of the game, we started to go faster in terms of our distribution, which you'd mentioned specifically at halftime we needed to do. Suddenly we've got Maeda and Kun having much more of an influence in the game as well. And I think a lot of that stems from the way our midfield started playing. I thought, apart from a maybe slightly nervy opening 5 minutes in that second half, I thought Hatate and Engels, when he was still in the park, their movement, their energy level, their ability to influence the play was excellent. I actually felt a little sorry for Engels when he went off, but Bernardo comes on, adds a whole nother raft of energy into the team as well. I mean, he was excellent in the amount of moves and how he was coordinating the play. But yeah, I would agree with the commenters. I think Hatate stepped it up a level. I don't know where Brendan got his rocket for halftime. I'm assuming he called NASA at halftime, because they looked for the bulk of that second half like a team that were sharp, that were on it. Still far too wasteful in front of goal. I mean, I don't know. Kun barely misses a much harder chance than the 2 or 3 that followed afterwards. Maeda does the most un-Maeda thing I've ever seen, where he scores the most composed goal I think I've seen in my life. You know, he just controls it, doesn't panic, and slots it in beautifully. But yeah, I really enjoyed that second half in every element except our finishing. So I hope we've got all of our wastefulness out of the system against by the time we come up against young boys, because that is the only negative I can really point to in the team, and it's a big one, because I mean, Kev, your prediction on the opening section of this was 8-0. If we'd taken our chances, it wouldn't have been far away from that tonight. It really wouldn't have. We were on it.
It may have been slightly tongue in cheek, but we played like we could have got it.
We could have got it. We absolutely could have got it. And so, yeah, I thought it was a really good half. I think there was plenty of the criticism was merited in the first half, but I thought second half they did what they had to do. But we must improve our accuracy in front of goal.
Yeah, got to be far more decisive, I think, because, going into that last couple of minutes, anything is possible. I'm going to bring up a few of these points. The first one is coming in from Campbell. 53, Hatate's first half was worth man of the match. Never mind the quality he showed over the night. He really can't understand the halftime rubbish from some supporters. Who on earth was saying that Hatate wasn't having a good game at halftime? Who would say that? Seriously. I want to talk about Dyson Maeda a wee bit there, Sean, because he gets the winning goal tonight. He's on a prolific run of form, but we shouldn't really be surprised, because you look at his form coming into Celtic. He comes in that January under Ange Postecoglou, having scored 23 goals in 40 games in the J-League, which obviously runs almost like... it ran on, didn't it? So he didn't get a pre-season. So he finishes his J-League season and he started playing for Celtic come the January. So a really, really prolific spell for him there. 23 and 40, followed by 8 goals for Celtic in that half season. And he's hit double figures ever since. 11, 10, and now 14. 14's his second personal best. And he was really, really composed when he finished that. Cool as a cucumber. And I think a brilliant assist by Kun as well. Kun,
yes.
It was one of the ones that looked as though tonight he was just getting his sharpness back, because he wasn't his usual brilliant self, but there was flashes tonight from Kun, and you hope that clicks on Wednesday night. But a wee bit of the old Dyson Maeda Appreciation Society, Sean. What a player he has been this season, and since he signed for us, really.
Yeah, it was great composure. It was a really good finish, and the one that's offside as well was a really good finish too. He's the only downside really is he has that first one, the first half, the one that is onside, where he should do better. But like 2 out of 3 ain't bad, and he's made the difference. You can see it from the first minute of the game today. when the goalkeeper does get wiped out and taken off, that comes in a counter. When if you don't have Kuhn and Maeda on the park, we don't really get that chance. So having those two did make a difference. It's one of the major disappointments these days that we should have been 5-1 a point, and if we were, then probably Kuhn and Maeda get a bit of rest, but instead they have to play 95 minutes. On the plus side, at least they didn't have to go to extra time. But yeah, I think like if you're playing someone like what happens with the goal that was scored that's the winner is all the Kilmarnock defence just panic and they all just get really drawn towards Kuhn, and it just leaves this massive space where Maeda's just standing. Well played, Kuhn, to see it and find him. But if that's Yang coming in onto his left foot, making that run, the Kilmarnock defence holds their shape and we don't get that chance. So like Kuhn's just presence almost creates that goal, the fear of him. So it does make a difference having these quality players on.
Yeah, the two of them have been missing over the last few weeks, and it's good to get them clicking back into the side for Wednesday night. Dyson Maeda, I've often called him, Kevin, a cult player of the Celtic side because he is able to do something absolutely otherworldly, but in the same game, like he did tonight, hit Rosed with a shot. That's Dyson for you. Love every single element of his game. But yeah, absolutely brilliant to get that. Such an important goal tonight by Maeda, but he's been prolific since we signed him.
Has been. And I think you've just done the thing that I do with him as well there. So he's done something good and you've called him Maeda. And then with the shot that almost goes out the ground, you've called him Dyson. And I've got a habit of doing that in my notes. His good things are Maeda and his bad things are Dyson. He's got that split personality about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even realise I was doing it.
No, well, it's one of those subconscious things I've noticed that I end up doing. But so you've come to me about both the Japanese players then, or two of the three rather, and I'll give a similar answer, I suppose, with that one because we've seen it with Hatate or Rio when he does something good, Rio, Hatate when he does something bad. They've got that ability within them to do the magnificent and also to do the mediocre and the terrible, and we get that in almost every game from Maeda. But you've got to take that with him. I mean, that's just what you get with him. Like he will pop up with big goals and big games. Like a few weeks ago, we were talking about. Actually, it was me and Chris before the game against Rangers. That was the one we were talking about. All the big games that players have stepped up for before that one. And with him, we're seeing he scores goals against them at Celtic Park, at Ibrox, at Hampden in cup finals and semi-finals. He is that kind of player that's there or thereabouts when you need a big moment. He's got something about him. He will also take it past the boy and then put his cross into Rosed of the stadium across the road if you're playing in Dundee. Like he's got both that about him. But you've got to take the rough and the smooth because what he gives you in terms of the defensive work rate, even in the opposition's final third, no one else gives it to you. So he's a very unique kind of player. And it's great to see him when he gets in amongst the goals. And it kind of strengthens the argument that Chris puts forward from time to time that maybe he could get a run as centre forward, the centre one, because he can work channels, he can get in behind the back line. He is, when he doesn't have to think about it, he's pretty decent in front of goal. And the offside goal was all about reactions. It's a loose ball and then he sticks a leg out and puts it past the keeper. So maybe there's another option there. But again, Wednesday night he will be playing on the left. Brendan's not going to change that. And we'll see what he can do. Hopefully he has a big European night under the lights at Parkhead.
Yeah, and this is the thing I've been talking all season about Kyogo going for 100 goals. Dyson Maeda's going for 50. I used his full name there because I'm accepting his flaws and his phenomenal ability as well. And you look at him, Chris, and you look at the nature of him coming in. Obviously, he came in a bit like a Wata, originally on a loan. We end up paying little over £1 million for this player.
What a return.
It's incredible. It really is incredible when you think about it. And he's popped up again tonight. He's a nice, cool kind of guy, 27 years of age. And what's this? Is it his fourth season at Celtic now? And I just think that he's that type of player. Again, we're fans watching from afar, and Rodgers is seeing him day in, day out. And often we have spoken about that. why not play him through the middle? I honestly think that's the reason we haven't signed another striker this season, just in case we needed a striker. Maeda was there. It just so happens that obviously he was injured and Kenny got his chance. But again, Maeda's so important to us, and what an absolute bargain. I think it was like 1.3 million we signed him for.
Yeah, we've had a few of those type of bargains over the years, but I think he might be getting up there with some of the best. He brings something that I don't think any other player can bring to the team. There's an energy, there's a ruthlessness about his running and the way he plays. He never gives up on anything. Interestingly enough, tonight was one of the first times I thought, wow, he's been outpaced by a defender at one stage, but a minute before he ran on and scored. So I absolutely love Dyson Maeda. I don't know if I can remember which one's good and which one's bad. I'll just do Dyson Maeda as well. But he's a bit of an enigma. But I think because he's so valuable when he plays on the wing, you almost don't want to play him up front. And Kev's right. I'm always saying we should try him up front. But the downside to that is you lose something so valuable on that wing, because the space he managed to find, as Sean pointed out, the space he managed to find when Kuhn drives in, and he's standing there completely unmarked. He had the awareness to say, I'm unmarked here. So he put himself in a great position to take the take the responsibility and take the shot on, and cool as a cucumber putting it in. So I think that the one condition you have, if you've got Maeda is great. Wherever you play him on the wing, you play him up front, fantastic. But if we do decide to utilise him up front, by God, we're going to have a hard time replacing him on the wing. We really are. He's just such an important player for us. It's goals, it's assists, it's energy. He gets back, he does a bit of defending. I think he takes a lot of pressure off the wing back. I just think he's a phenomenal player, and given what we paid for him, I mean, what a return on investment. And I'm sure we could easily let him go to another club for huge money. I'd rather keep him at the club. I don't even want to think about selling Dyson Maeda at the moment. I just think he's a player we could actually start to build the team around. Kuhn, very, very similar tonight. I think second half he really started to show what he could do as well. And actually the two of them link up well. When they're both on it, the two of them link up well. Sean pointed out, Kuhn drags the defenders towards him, and Maeda takes advantage of the space. We need to do that more often. And I think we do need to alleviate some of the pressure on the third Japanese player that we've got there, which is Kyogo. Too often I found tonight that Kyogo was in the right position to receive the ball, coming deep, trying to link the play. But when he's left to try and get to goal, he's got a defender, at least one big defender on him. And it's very, very difficult for someone of his stature to get past. I don't think it suits his style of play. So we have to find a way to alleviate some of the pressure on Kyogo. And I think the way Maeda and Kuhn can play, they can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, the pace between the two of them is incredible. I was just looking there, Maeda now, 131 goals and assists in his career in 323 games, playing most of that on the wing, which is astonishing return. When we're talking about the forwards, Sean, I'll come to you first on this one. Chris mentioned Kyogo, and I know that Ida only came in for 10-15 minutes, but I thought Ida looked really good for that small cameo appearance.
Actually, just on that, Paul John, I know it was a good point Sean made about Hatate being mature. Did you notice Ida did the same thing, actually, towards the end of the game? Instead of trying to take it forward, he actually passed it back and retained possession at one point. I thought that was a really, given he's a striker, I thought that was a really mature moment in the game for him.
Especially when he's on this goal drought, Chris, and you're thinking that it will be all roads leading towards the opposition's goal. He didn't, as you say, he was calm, composed.
Back credit for that.
There is that moment, though, Sean, where he picks the ball up and he goes on a rampaging run, a swashbuckling run, and the player tries to take him down. Caniggia style in the World Cup. Remember that for Argentina, and he gets to that point, just thinking, "Strike it, big man, strike it." And he's very unselfish, and he plays in Kuhn, and Kuhn doesn't score. But he does. He looked really good tonight. And I know it was just a cameo, but I mean, chalk and cheese when you're thinking of style of play between him and Kyogo. He comes on far more direct. I think Big Ida enjoys getting the ball with his back to goal, shielding it, laying it off, turning and trying to get the space, the kind of secondary space. Going into Wednesday night, neither of the two strikers are on a purple patch of goal-scoring form, Sean. Do you think Rodgers will mix it up, or do you think we're going with Kyogo on Wednesday?
I think we'll probably go with Kyogo. And I don't think either of them are struggling outside the box, right? You know, Kyogo's been getting a lot of praise on the wing.
Yep.
Technically, he gets an assist for McGregor's goal tonight. It's the 1-2 with Kyogo that leads to that. And you're right, Ida did look live when he came on. But, you know, that's not where their problems are. Their problems right now are in front of goal. And Kyogo was wasteful, poor in front of goal. He has that one-on-one first half where he absolutely should score and he puts it off target. Ida doesn't get any. He puts a dangerous ball into the 6-yard box. Doesn't really get any chances himself, but he's only on for 5 minutes. But you're right. He did look lively. Another player that stood out for me that's not been mentioned so far was Austin Trusty. I thought, like, after the last couple of games, he was targeted in the same way that Dundee targeted him and Ross County targeted him. But tonight he stood up to it, up against Bobby Wales. I think it was only 25 minutes into the game. I had there was a ball in the box that was kind of floating in the air, and he wasn't favourite for it, but he went and won it. And then, like, 5 minutes later, again, same thing out wide when Simon Murray bullied him out wide at the weekend, and he was up against I'm not sure who the Kilmarnock player was, but it was the exact same situation. But this time he won it. He was physical and he won it, and he maintained that throughout the game. He was getting to stuff first. He was cutting off passes. He was being physical and winning his battles. So I thought he responded really well to what was publicly deserved criticism from the manager and from everyone really the weekend. So I thought he was a great player tonight.
Yeah, he was weak as the proverbial Kevin, apparently. No, a good shout. It was a good shout. And, looking at that defence, all the chat has been in this January, Kevin, around the left-back position. Taylor comes off, Scales goes on. I think that answers its own questions in relation to the future of Alex Bailly. But on the point of the strikers, Kev, it's one of these things. Brendan's come out and said, listen, I don't need my centre forward to score 40 goals a season. I want my wingers to get in amongst the goals. And obviously Maeda and Kuhn's done that in a big way. The other goal scorer tonight, Callum McGregor, another goal, 7th of the season. Engels has hit 7th this season. That's what Rodgers likes. But my point that I was making towards the end of the week was the fact that regardless of all that, if you're a striker not scoring goals, that affects your confidence, doesn't it?
It does. So I'm with Brendan on the fact that I would like to get my goals spread around the team. I think that's obviously a strength if you can do that. Centre backs come up, getting goals from corners, midfielders chipping in with goals like Callum's done this year. But if you're a centre forward, I think you have a right to be the most selfish player in the park and say, I don't really want the other boys chipping in quite so much. That's my responsibility. I'm going to take the burden of it and I want to score the goals. And when it's not happening, I think it obviously affects them. So, again, as Sean was saying, neither of them are doing anything wrong outside the box for the majority of the time. I think Kyogo's link-up play is great. He makes really good movement off the ball. He's making great runs in behind. It's not been picked out big players, but that's recurring for the last 2.5 years or 3 years. But all the play outside the box has generally been pretty good. They just have a lack of confidence at the moment in the box, which is a big worry. Personal point of view, as a fan, as somebody watching the team, I also do want my centre forward to be hitting at least 20 goals a season. And I think a Celtic centre forward who plays 30, 35 games in this league, should hit a minimum of 20 goals a season, because you should be getting the service to do it. And we saw it today, like Kyogo's missed 2 really good chances. Ida didn't get one today, but he missed out a big chance up in Dundee in midweek. So it is a bit of a worry, right? And Rodgers can say what he wants about wanting to spread the goals. It's great to have one player that you can rely on. And he had that the last time he was here, be it Dembele or Edward or Griffiths. There was always somebody that would be a focal point that would get you the goals. So I think it's something we do need to address, and whether it's bringing somebody new in or it's adapting the style of play a little bit more just to suit who we've got up front. I would like to see some little tweak so we could get the best out of a centre forward, out of a number 9.
Yeah, there's got to be an interesting approach though, because we've spent 9.5 or 9 million, rising to 9.5 on Adam Maeda, and no doubt Brendan Rodgers will be wanting to spend in the ballpark of 10 million on another striker. Whether or not the board will bite to that, we'll need to wait and see. But looking at the goals and the way that they're spread around, Chris, you look at the kind of top 3: Kuhn, Maeda, Furuhashi. They've all got double figures. You then move into the midfield. Engels, Hatate and McGregor, interesting, they've all got 7 each. So you're looking at 3 midfielders who are kind of heading towards double figures. So that it works. It does work. And then, of course, you've got Maeda sitting on 8. But, I think you could read into that moment where he goes on that run. He's entitled to take a strike, be greedy, be selfish, as Kev says, take a strike. The very fact that he doesn't feel the need to take a strike, I don't think it was confidence. It was more a fact of, you know what, Kuhn's in a better position. I'll just lay this off, because there isn't pressure being put on him by the gaffer to get the 20 goals that the likes of myself and Kev would like to see a number 9 getting.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do think that, when you're on the front foot, I like to see us going and taking shots, whether it's coming to the strikers or any of the attackers. I sometimes think that we've shown too much of a tendency this season to make the perfect pass and try and score the prettiest goal possible, rather than just wrap your foot around one and put it in the net. I'm the same as you. I'd like to see Maeda run up and actually take the shot there. I thought he was in a good position. I thought he'd worked the chance brilliantly, stayed on his feet, did everything right. He could have passed it left or right, to be honest. I mean, there was, I think it was Maeda was up with him as well, and he could have went either side or taken it on. He goes unselfish. It's admirable. Could also maybe be an indication he's maybe doesn't have quite the self-belief that he maybe needs at the moment. But you know what? See if Kuhn puts that into the net, nobody complains, and either gets rightly the credit for the assist and the build-up. I would have just liked to see him get a goal ahead of the Wednesday game, and because there is a high possibility we'll come to rely on him at some point during the game. So it would be nice to have both our strikers on the score sheet tonight and get that confidence up and keep the momentum. But I think, to a man in the second half in particular, but overall, we didn't play badly tonight. There's a wastefulness to our play sometimes I think we need to address. And it could be something that's just a temporary slump and we have to get past it. But I thought there was more of an impetus in the second half in terms of the way we played. The passes were going forward. We were bringing the wingers into the game. Our midfield weren't getting overrun. I think Sean's point was a good one. Callum McGregor, actually. Well, one thing I always think about Callum McGregor, when you don't see a lot of Callum McGregor when you're watching a game live, I think he's having a good game because he's very subtle in a lot of what he does. And he builds a play. When you do see Callum McGregor, it's usually because people are closing him down and put him under a bit of pressure, and he's maybe not having the support around him that he needs. So for me tonight, I thought he had a great game. Came up with another brilliant goal. Kind of helped run the show in the second half, and I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a tough game for us to watch at times, but great result, and takes a bit of pressure off now for this competition, and we can start to focus on Wednesday.
Yeah, the urban culture reminds us. Celtic march on to the treble. The draw, of course, will be on Monday once all the fixtures have been played. Jean Paul II, as much Kuhn is good, as much as he is good, he needs to stop the Hollywood passes and goals. And that should have been 8, says Jean Paul. And then Kevin McCluskey's prediction would have been up. Lord Flashheart, we need to be more clinical against young boys, 100%. And I've got someone who's actually been watching young boys for a number of years here. So here we go. By the way, it says 3XO Void. I used to go to many young boy games with my dad when I was a kid. Kevin's shaking his head there because he thinks it's Di Canio played Subbuteo with the hoops. So I know the club and the league. And he goes on to say, I have a sneaky suspicion we might compensate for tonight's finishing on Tuesday. Young boys are rotten and could suffer a heavy defeat against us. So it could work. The floodgates could open up, Chris, after so many games where we're thinking we could be 3-4 goals up. I mean, if that happens on Wednesday night, Sean, that's just going to, get us back on track, give us that bounce and that energy that you need, because it's virtually guaranteeing you the progression into the playoff, and to do it in style as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like clinical. We've said it so many times. We're just not clinical enough lately. Like when you think about the game where we beat Aberdeen 6-0, I think we had 6 chances and scored 6 goals. Tonight was unquestionably a better performance than the game where we beat Hibs 3-0, for example. So like scoring goals really does shape games, and it controls narrative. So we really, if we can get these goals, we played great in spells tonight. We were great for the first 20 minutes. We then switched on for another 10 in the first half. There was a whole 20-minute spell in the second half, particularly when Kilmarnock were trying to come out, where we were great overall. But yeah, it's like we just need to be converting these chances, and it might just click. It might just be statistical variance. Who knows? Like if there's definitely a case, Maeda was the most composed finisher tonight for sure. So, hopefully that clicks for all of them, and they all get to that point. I think when one goes in early, you're supposed to really build on that. And in the last 2 games, we haven't. So hopefully we can get that second. It shows you how important that second goal is, and hopefully that clicks for us on Wednesday night.
Yeah, it's not beyond us. You get the vibe that it is not beyond us to go out there, and I'm hoping it's a famous Champions League victory at Celtic Park. Big shout out to Tony Mowbray, the man who gave us the huddle. He's back in the game. West Bromwich Albion manager for a second time. That's who we prized him from. He was playing some great football at Hibs and West Brom. Obviously, a health scare when he was the manager at Birmingham, and he's back in the game. Great to see. Welcome back, Big Mogga. Listen, thanks everybody for getting involved. It was, for me, I think, a convincing victory, but it should have been by a bigger margin. But we're into the next round. It's a cup game. We're into the next round, and I'm looking forward to seeing who we get. Maybe Fraserburgh. We'll see how the other fixtures go. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved, and thank you to Sean, Kevin, and Chris for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.